What's up guys, welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. I'm your host Caleb. If you guys want to support the channel, you can click on that whatnot link in the description down below. You'll get a free $15 whenever you sign up and you'll be supporting the channel. Additionally, you can become a patron. Shout out to my high contributing patrons, Newsome and Irrelevant, you guys rock. Now let's get into today's Deck Tech with Nicole Bolas the Ravager. And guys, today we are going to be the bad guy. Yes, we're going to be that player at the table. This is basically a blink strategy that focuses really hard on blinking our commander as many times as possible, getting a ton of value off of that, and then additionally making our opponents discard their entire hand. Yes, I know that's kind of a messed up strategy, but sometimes you've just got to dip into the messed up decks of Magic and kind of just be that arch enemy. So we're going to be playing Aclazotz, Archon of Cruelty, Tiny Bones, Turgid, Lord Xander, anything you can think of that's going to make our opponent salty, it's going to be in this deck. And then the core of it is just a very efficient blink strategy where we blink Muldrifter and other things to get a ton of value off of our blink effects if our commander's not on the battlefield. So if that sounds like a deck tech you want to get into, let's get into it. Let's kick it off by talking about our discard synergies. We're going to run Cruxa here. This guy's super solid. He's going to enter the battlefield early, make everybody discard a card, and then late game we're going to escape him from our graveyard and start smashing face, causing them to discard even more cards. Siphon Mine is also super solid here. It's going to force all of our opponents to discard a card, and then we're going to draw a card for each card discarded this way. So that's upwards to 3 cards. I also like Dark Deal here because it can actually be kind of card advantage for us and allow us to rifle through our deck because we're probably going to have more cards in our hand than our opponents. And then it is also going to make our opponents kind of discard a card, right? Because you draw cards less than the amount you already had in your hand. Shieldred is a super funny one. Now this one's going to be amazing to blink because remember, this is going to be a blink deck. And then additionally, whenever we turn it over, each opponent destroys up to 1 target creature or planeswalker that player controls. So it's going to be another edict effect, and then it's going to force our opponents to discard 3 cards and then mill 3 cards. And last but not least, we're going to reanimate everybody's graveyard. So this card can be a solid game ender in this deck. Aclazotz is perfect in this deck. It's going to generate a board state, it's going to generate card advantage, and it's going to make our opponents discard cards. Again, just a perfect card for this deck, especially when he's kind of super hard to get rid of. Rankle is also super flexible here. He can be card advantage for everybody. He can make everybody discard a card. Notably, discarding a card can sometimes help us and get a big creature into our graveyard. That way we can reanimate it. And then additionally, he can make everybody sacrifice a creature. Tiny Bones doesn't make anybody discard, but these are kind of our discard payoffs. He's just going to allow us to draw a card whenever an opponent discards a card. And then when nobody has cards in their hand, he can start dealing massive damage to the table. Geth's Grimoire is more card advantage whenever our opponents discard a card. I'm also a big fan of Sangromancer in this deck. You're gonna be the target, right? As soon as they realize that you're trying to make everybody discard their entire hand, they're gonna try to kill you as fast as possible, and you can't really blame them for trying. So having a little bit of life gain is just going to help you out. Waste Not does all kinds of things. It generates a board state, it gets us card advantage, it gets us ramp. This card's just amazing in these discard decks, along with Turgid, right? Turgid's kind of the boogeyman of the discard strategy, so putting her in the 99 kind of makes us less of a threat, and then we have our discard outlet in the command zone, so if we land this girl, we're probably going to run away with the game. Moving on, let's talk about the amazing ETBs we're going to abuse in this deck. Archon of Cruelty is exactly that. This card is messed up. We're going to make them sacrifice a creature, we're going to make them discard a card, we're going to get a little bit of life gain, we're going to get card advantage, and they're going to lose a little bit of life. Not to mention, this trigger happens on attack and ETB. Nullspine Dragon, not amazing, right? Because it enters the battlefield, draws cards equal to the amount of damage you've already done, but in a blink deck, it's kind of amazing, because you can attack, deal 7 damage with your Nullspine Dragon, and then blink your Nullspine Dragon to draw a fresh new grip. You do have to discard your hand in between there, but again, we kind of want some of our creature cards in our graveyard anyway, that way we can reanimate them. Master of Waves is super cool here. We're just going to keep blinking him and generating a massive board state. Astral Dragon, now this card has some crazy math when it comes down to it, especially when we start copying stuff like Virtue of Knowledge or Panharmonicon. All those ETBs are going to double and then double again. It kind of creates a near infinite board state and you win the game out of nowhere. It is a very expensive combo to end the game and you're not going to have access to haste, but again, that is a combo that can end the game very quickly if your opponent does not stop that. It also does crazy things with Cursed Mirror as well. We're playing stuff like Sword of Hearthenhome, Portal to Phyrexia. This guy has a lot of very good targets. Sepulchral Primordial, this one's self-explanatory. We're making our opponents discard their hands, so their big creatures are going to get into the graveyard before they have a chance to cast them. Then we cast Sepulchral Primordial and start reanimating their graveyards. Then we can blink them to reanimate almost all of their graveyard. It's gonna get insane. Cardor Doomscourge is in the deck for the same reason we're playing Sangromancer. Our opponents are going to be attacking us. We will be the target. You're just gonna have to live with that. So forcing our opponents to attack themselves while we're taking away their entire hand is just going to increase the overall salt we're trying to generate with a deck like this. Portal to Phyrexia, blinking this, absolutely backbreaking, and you will win the game shortly afterwards if it sticks. Primaris Eliminator, this guy has a lot more utility than something like your Ravenous Chupacabra does, so it's going to be very solid to have this either be a little bit of a board wipe or just destroy someone's very impactful creature. Grey Merchant of Asphodel, a solid game ender in this deck, and then additionally it's going to gain us some life. Phyrexian Delver is a solid way to reanimate our giant creatures from the graveyard. Urtai Resurrected, we do have a lot of instant speed ways to blink our creatures, so this can kind of be a counter spell at any time, which is amazing. And then additionally, when it enters the battlefield, it can also counter something or destroy a creature. Burning Ruin Demon, this is a reanimation deck, so we can just cast this guy or reanimate this guy and put our bombs in the graveyard to reanimate later. Terror of the Peaks, ETB deck, big creatures, gotta play Terror of the Peaks. Mole Drifter is just some solid card advantage. Notably, if you evoke Mole Drifter and then blink it at instant speed, you can actually evoke it and then have it stick on the battlefield. So that's kind of broken there. Amphin Mutineer and Fury, just solid removal pieces. We have Brass's Tunnel Grinder for some solid card advantage. Archaeomancer, now I like this girl here because again, we're playing a lot of instant speed blink spells, and a lot of those instant speed blink spells blink two creatures. So as long as we're blinking another creature and then our Archaeomancer, and then we have another blink spell in the graveyard, we can constantly keep bringing that back and keep blinking our important pieces. Agent of Treachery, again, this is a pretty salty deck. We're trying to steal our opponent's stuff, and then we're going to draw cards whenever we steal their stuff. Animate Dead and Necromancy, there are ways to blink this in the deck, so just blinking this and being able to change the reanimation target can actually be pretty powerful. Cursed Mirror, blinking a Cursed Mirror, again with Astral Dragon, you're probably just going to win the game because they do get haste, not okay. And then additionally, with the Cursed Mirror, we can also just blink it to get our best ETB on the battlefield. Foreboding Steamboat. Now, this is a new card. I'm kind of excited I found it, and I'm excited to share it as well. Let me know what you think about this strategy, but it's going to allow us to exile two creatures from each opponent, and they get to choose it, right? So they get to choose, but what we're really trying to do with this is exile two of our most favorite blink ETBs. So we're going to exile something like a Terror of the Peaks and maybe a Burning Ruin Demon. Again, just two things with very good ETBs on them, and then we're actually going to blink our Steamboat, and then whenever we blink our Steamboat, those two creatures are going to get to re-enter the battlefield, and we're going to get the two ETBs again, and then Steamboat's going to re-enter the battlefield, exiling them again. So it's basically a way to get two ETBs off of one while also removing some of our opponent's creatures. Virtue of Knowledge and Panharmonicon are just going to be able to double up on all of our ETBs. We have Irenicus's Vile Duplication and Quantum Misalignment. Notably, these do create token copies of our commander that aren't legendary, and token copies can actually flip now. So we can have up to 3 Nicole Bolases on the battlefield as long as flipping them doesn't give them their legendary back. I'm not sure about that, but we can at least have 3 front sides and flip one of them over. If someone's well versed in the rules, let me know in the comments down below if we can actually flip all three of them or not, because that's kind of interesting to me. Sword of Hearth and Home, very good here, just getting extra blink effects and a little bit of ramp. Displacer Kitten, not okay. Whenever we cast a non-land permanent, we get to blink our best ETB on the battlefield. And then we have our instant speed blink spells with Essence Flux, Ghostly Flicker, Planar Incision, Displace. All of these are going to be very good, again, especially with two of them in the graveyard and an Archaeomancer. Let's move on to some other solid cards we're going to include in this deck. We have the Scarab God. I just love this guy. He's super hard to get rid of unless they exile him, and then he's going to be able to reanimate all of our opponent's creatures as well as ours. Tiny Bones also seemed amazing here, not only from a flavor standpoint, but from a good standpoint. Now we're able to cast all of our opponent's non-land permanents from their graveyard. Pretty insane. Chainer Nightmare Adept, one of my favorite reanimation spells because it actually gives whatever you reanimate haste. Toxtril the Corrosive is also going to see play in this deck. We're not trying to make friends with this deck, that's pretty obvious, so we might as well include Toxtril as well. Relic of Sauron, just an amazing card. It gets all of those big pieces that we want to reanimate in our graveyard, a little bit of card advantage, and a little bit of ramp at the same time. With all that being said, hey guys, don't build this deck. Sometimes it's just super fun to go ahead and have a thought experiment and build a super salty deck that looks very fun, and maybe you torture your playgroup with it once or twice, maybe in an online game, or maybe you proxy the list. Either way, it was super fun, and hey, in those cutthroat metas, maybe you can actually play this. With that being said, let me know what you think about this deck in the comments down below. Don't forget to like the video. I hope this helped you in your deck building endeavors. Shout out to all my patrons, Newsome, Excessum, Chicken Salad, Creator, and Irrelevant. You guys are awesome. I will see you guys in the next one.